Hey, Pastor Mike here. I just want to thank you for tuning in and let you know that we have more resources like this available for you on our website. Just a quick note before we begin though. While resources like this can help you grow in ways that God has ordained for you, they are no replacement for gathering with your local church on Sunday. And on that note, if you're not currently connected somewhere, we want you to know you're always invited to Grace Pointe. Visit our website for time and location, and we hope to see you soon.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things that were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world at the incarnation. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and yet the world did not know its creator. He came to his own people, Israel, did not receive him, but to all who did receive him, if you would receive him, all who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of man, nor of the will of the flesh, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We have seen his glory as the glory only of the Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. This is the child in the manger to which we visit tonight. The shepherds visited him wondering, what child is this truly? They'd been told these things and had to go tell it and witness it for themselves. What they were told was so striking, they couldn't think, I'll get another chance at an experience like that. They had to go and see. Some of us are that way tonight. I have to go be with my church family. I have to read. I have to see. I have to uplift my heart based on what is true. And some of you are being dragged here and are maybe awaiting a nice ham, or if you do turkey, or if you're Hispanic, a nice roast pork at home. And you're thinking, how long is this going to be? Not much longer, I think. But the truth is, our hearts need to pause. We need to go see what has happened in Bethlehem, what happened 2,000 years ago. God called this baby that was born into lowly, impoverished circumstances the Word. And in here, in John 1, John says the Word was in the beginning, and the Word was God. And the beginning is not what happened in Bethlehem. It's something that happened much earlier. How should we understand this living Word, who he is, who he came to be for us? Well, I want to walk you through that. I want to answer 4 questions briefly. When was he? Where was he, the Word? Who was the Word? And what did the Word do? When was he? Well, John says, in the beginning, verse 1, the first stanza of it, the first phrase, in the beginning was the capital W Word. That word had different meanings depending on if you were Greek or if you were Hebrew. Hebrew people would have heard the word and thought, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth by the word of his mouth. Greek people would have heard the word and thought manly philosophy, the intellect of man, what man can accomplish. And I don't think John is speaking to either one. In other words, I don't think, in order to understand what the word means, we have to go to who Jesus is. Often what we'll do is we'll start with what we think the word means and apply that to Jesus. But to know what word means, we have to look at Jesus and let him define what the living word means. What does it mean? Well, I believe if you would humor me for a moment, if I would go back and read Genesis 1, the first few verses of it, I think you'll hear John 1 there. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and it was void. Darkness was over the face of the deep. the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In the beginning was God. In the beginning was the baby. So this baby, we are meant to see, lying in a manger, existed before, in eternity past, was there in the beginning of all things, before anything was created. John is what would be the word? He is creating an illusion with an A, not illusion, but an illusion, so that readers of this would think that sounds exactly like the creation story. There's some of the same themes in there. And he's wanting to point out that this word is eternal. Who is the word? Who is this baby in the manger? What John wants us to do is think, if you want to know the baby in the manger, I want you to go to what you first knew about God, your earliest understanding of God. What's the oldest thing you know about God? That baby was there. When was he? Well, when God was about to create everything, this baby, this person, was there at that time. He was with God. Where was he? Well, where was God? In that text, the Spirit of God was hovering above the waters, and Jesus was present. So when we see that God was there in the beginning, God existed, meaning the only thing to exist before Genesis 1:1 was God. The child was there. This second person of what we call the Trinity in Christendom, what Orthodox Christianity calls the Trinity, the second person of the Trinity, the Son, born here in a manger, was pre-existent to all of creation and was there with God. And that's important. He wasn't somewhere else in the cosmos. He wasn't hanging out on Titan like the Mormons think. A lot of religious things happen out on Titan, the Saturn's moon, Titan. That's real. Look it up. Jesus wasn't somewhere else in the stratosphere. He wasn't off in the Horsehead Nebula. He was with God. He pre-existed the Horsehead Nebula. He pre-existed all things, and he was near to the Father. Who was he? Well, the Word was God. So in the beginning, the Word existed. The Word was with God. The Word was God. God himself. We're meant to see that this baby in a manger is God. And John continues describing him further, answering the question, who was he? He was, in verse 2, he was in the beginning with God. He reiterates it. He doesn't want there to be any confusion about who this baby is and when he existed. He is a distinct person, too. Think about that. He was God, and he was with God. How can you be those two things at once? How could any one entity be God and be with God? A distinct person from God, and yet present with God. This is the mystery of the Trinity. This is the mystery of the second person of the Trinity, distinct from the Father, a separate person, not with personhood like a human, you see, but a distinct person of the Trinity from the Father, but with the Father in eternity past. Now, thank you so much for that cry, now sounding like that. Thank you. I can't even tell whose baby that is, or if it's a doll or a real baby. But that is the illustration. A picture can't do it. It's not enough. God incarnate, the eternal Word now incarnate, distinct from the Father. And number 3, a function. What creator? He created all things. Look around. Anything you can list. In fact, he says it in such a strange way. You ever wondered why John says it so strangely? All things were made through him, and in fact, without him was not anything made that was made. In other words, you can't find anything that this person, this child, didn't create. He has a function that is the same as the function that the Hebrew people have been applying to the Father in their entire time of knowing Yahweh. They've said God is the creator, and now who has come? The creator himself. John wants no mistake about who this child is. He is a creator completely. He's not Santa's little helper, Father's little helper in creation. He has absolute authority and creation power like the Father has. His oneness with the Father is meant to leap out off the page for us. John describes him even further by saying, what? In him was life, and the life was the light of men. So in him is this life. Now, what's distinct about that word life is in Greek, there's two words that could have been used for the word life, and it's not the one that means everyday life, like I'm using right now. They had a different word that means transcendent, spiritual life, something more than the life you're living that you're actually partaking in right now, something else, something otherworldly. And in this child is that life that is transferable to us, I might add. And that's important. Of all the things John says, he loves 3 words, and he loves alliteration. He must have been a pastor. He loves saying life and light and, what's the third one? It's going to bother me, and someone's going to come tell me after service what the third one is. He loves life and light. And there's a third one. It'll come to me at some point, and I'll holler it out. And you see, if you follow the way he uses this word life, he sets it up here at the beginning, which is interesting, because in Genesis 1 and 2, what did God do? He created life. And here we find the second person of the Trinity incarnate with life inside of him, and it's the light of men. Later on, John says that Jesus is the living water, or life water. Chapter 6, his words are spirit and life. Chapter 6, he's the bread of life. Chapter 8, the light of life. The theme starts in chapter 1, and it's meant to be taken throughout the entire Gospel of John. What is the light? It's the life in him. In other words, light is an illustration for the life that emanated from within him. So when you envision the second person of the Trinity, this is often why in church history you will see light emanating from the manger as it is here, because he's the light. It was emanating from within him, and he brought that light, and that light is life for mankind. Why is that so important? Why is the light of life important? Verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and darkness has not overcome this light that shines from within Jesus. So the light of life was in him, emanating out of him. For anyone who would accept, they'd get this powerful life transferred to him. Why is this important? Think about Genesis 1. What did we know about Genesis 1? There was darkness. And what did John say? That darkness has not overcome it. You mean in John 1, there's still darkness? I thought God said, let there be light, and it shone, and there was no more darkness. Why is there still darkness? What you need to understand about the way John is using Genesis as a literary device, it means that after all this time, he wants the reader to see. Make no mistake, get this. After all this time, between creation and incarnation, after all this time between Garden of Eden and O little town of Bethlehem, after all this time of mankind going his own way, trying to do things his own way, desiring to forsake God's ways, and see how he can fend for himself, after all this time, there's still darkness. After all this time, man has not been able to find the light. Man has not been able to create the light for himself. So, of course, the light of heaven coming to earth is good news. Did God send forth another judgment, another flood? No, he sent forth, if you were here Sunday, he sent forth his Son. Think about it. Whereas in creation, God said, let there be light. And all of a sudden, light shone throughout the entire universe. You know the reason that the James Webb, is it a telescope? I don't know if you would call it a telescope. If you know why the Hubble or the James Webb telescope can see light years away, do you know what carries those images throughout the universe? Do you know why we can see stars that are eons away? It's light. Light is traveling through the universe. When God said, let there be light, it shone everywhere, and it's coming from somewhere. And you think about that. Where was the source of all this light? When God said, let there be light, he spoke light into creation, and it emanated everywhere he said it would go. And in John 1, God said, let there be light, and his son was born to shine an even more powerful light into the hearts of sinful man, shrouded in darkness. And God said, let there be light by sending forth his son, Jesus. God sent light into the dark places in us. Was it merely to shed lights on our sin so we could say, oh, I didn't notice that sin before? No, it was to redeem. Remember, he had the light of life within him. So he's bringing life to the lifeless, light to those who are far off in darkness. That Greek word I told you that means love is zoe, transliterated Z-O-E, zoe. It means supernatural life, and it came, the supernatural light of the world that we sing about, that we will ponder and celebrate as we leave here tonight, that God let that light come into the world that we might receive that light, which is life and life eternal. And we ourselves be resurrected from the dead by belief in that light. What child is this laid to rest on Mary's lap is sleeping, whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while good shepherds watch are keeping? It's the child who was in the beginning. It's the child who was with God. It's the child who was God. This child contains supernatural life within himself that he will share with you if you ask for it. If you ask for it, and he will not withhold it from you. That little drummer boy and the Magi had something in common. They knew this. They knew that when you know who your king is, you go give him a gift. And that's often the image we have at Christmas of the child in the manger that we bring the gift to. But it's the other way around, isn't it? He's the gift that the Father has given for us. That's the proper depiction. And on that package is written a little tag that says, from the Father to you with love. The proper depiction of the nativity that some of you have in your foyer or your foyer, if you're from somewhere fancy, is that there's another character, and that character is you coming to the manger to receive your gift. John said, the true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own. He was rejected. His own people did not receive him. But to all who do receive him, if you would receive him, all who believe in his name, to them he will give this right to become a child of God, an adoptive child of God, born not of the blood or the will of the flesh, but born of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and because he came, get this, because we see him, we see the glory of God, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. So as you go tonight, the Word, the capital W, living Word, Jesus Christ, full of grace and truth and hope for you and peace for you and a great love for you, offering you the joy of knowing him and the peace of forgiveness of your sins. He will be your gift if you would receive him. If you would go to the manger and bow down and worship him and say simply, forgive me of my sins. Thank you for coming into the world so that I can be forgiven. This treasure of heaven given for us, may we marvel at it. Open the gift. If you've not, open the gift. And if you have, marvel at it all the same. Jesus, 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 precious Jesus, thank you for the incarnation. Thank you for leaving heaven to come to earth. It is a mystery, but your word makes it clear so that we may know the one it is whom we worship. You were in the beginning. You were with God. You were God. Lord, 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 would you make these things clear to us? Help us not to forsake the familiar. Help us to love this familiar story in a fresh way. For anyone in this room who does not know you, Lord, I pray that tonight they leave with something they know is true, not a myth, not a quaint little sweet story from a certain time of year, but something worth believing forever, and something that by believing in this child, they may receive eternal life. If that's you, pray to the Lord. Meet the baby in the manger. Bow before him in your heart. Worship him tonight. Exalt his name, for he is God incarnate. Jesus, thank you, thank you. We could say it 1,000,000 times and it would never be enough. Thank you for the gift of your life that you came at the incarnation to offer up, and that you finally offered up on the cross. We praise you now.